We haven't seen this guy in a long time, and I feel like we have to end the show on this. And I know I'm going a little bit over, but it's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the mess. The mess is back. The Mess D'Souza, booming economies and the tariff debate. The problem with much of the anti-tariff rhetoric. Now, much, however, not all, I guess, is the theory. That some of it's fine. But I think all of us want to look like, want to take advice on tariffs from a convicted felon who dresses like an undercover agent trying to fit in on the golf team at a high school. Is that Garanimals? I think it is. Also, this picture of Trump. I feel like, hold on. I made this. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Yeah. So I feel like, I don't know if he's going to show footage, but I feel like you should be warned that the nunt is possible. So there you go. The timing on that is pretty good. I put a timing thing on there of about like 3 seconds, and it seems to be just enough time to. All right. So here we go. This is the Mess D'Souza on why we're all just out. We're just all upset over nothing that is going to collapse the economy at midnight tonight.
Tariffs are very controversial, even on the right.
Really? Yeah. So there's people on the right that are like, "What the fuck, dude?" Okay. And
I've had economists on this show, Stephen Moore, Brian Westbury, and in general, free market economists are opposed to tariffs.
Yes. You know who's really opposed to tariffs? The people that gave you that wood paneling, which is from China, that sign that's made in China, this mic stand that you've got attached, which is made in China, that end table that you're using, which is made in China, this sound baffling panel board shit, also made in China, these fake fucking plants, also made in China. I'm fairly certain that chair, more than likely, you might be off, it might be Vietnam via China. I don't know why you have a pillow. It's a little weird. I mean, why don't you just get one of those like plastic laminated granny chairs while you're at it? The pen right there, definitely. I don't know what the fuck that is. And this table, almost everything, and your clothes, and your glasses probably. I wouldn't doubt that either. I mean, the frames probably come from China. Maybe their prescription had the lens ground in, at the eye store at Target.
They're opposed to tariffs really for a couple of reasons. One is
they believe in the magic freedom fairy, and two is to annoy Trump.
The tariff is a tax. And free market economists are the anti-tax guys. They don't want taxation, and they find this to be just a new form of taxation.
Which it is.
A second reason is that tariffs are a restriction on trade. And
I agree with that. I think that's technically sure. All right. And
large trade this is kind of one of the core principles of economics, is trade is beneficial to both parties. If you and I are, let's just...
He doesn't mean political parties. He means the people trading. Right. That's why there would be a trade if it wasn't beneficial to both parties. You're not really trading. I think it would be robbery in one case.
Living in a primitive village and you have shoes and I have wheat. If
I would make wheat shoes.
Want wheat and I want shoes, we can make a trade. We wouldn't.
Yes, but maybe just make wheat shoes and say fuck them.
Trade. I wouldn't trade you my shoes for the wheat if I didn't think your wheat was more important to me than the shoes.
Or more delicious. If you could eat your wheat shoes, then fuck them. Like how about you eat the wheat and use the thatch to make some shoes? And then, I don't know, what do you do with a neighboring village? Kill them for religious reasons, maybe. Okay, this is good. I mean, how primitive are we going?
Conversely, you wouldn't make the trade if you didn't think that the shoes were more important to you than the wheat.
Right. And no matter how much ketchup you put on them.
Trade in this sense is by definition something that benefits both sides. Now, that being said, the truth of it is, the vast majority of countries in the world, and this is not just the countries that are limping along and not doing so well, but countries that are very successful, or countries that have been the big booming economies of the past 30 years. Countries like China, to a lesser degree, but still India, which has also boomed relative to the kind of poverty-stricken country it was when I grew up there. So the point is, all of these countries have tariffs. And all of these countries have more tariffs than we do. This is, of course...
Yeah, but they have, because they have individual ones. Instead of one giant fuck you tariff, they have a little tariff on this and a little tariff on this for certain goods that they're trying to maintain as they build their economy.
Something that motivates Trump. And I'll come back to why it motivates him. But here's...
Racism? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Question just to think about. If tariffs are so terrible, why do all these countries have them?
Ah, I see. A couple of things. One is tariffs aren't terrible in general. It's blanket tariffs for no fucking reason that's confusing to everyone. And also, in a bunch of these cases, Trump is trying to use them to even out the trade differential between our country and theirs when they couldn't possibly, because these countries don't make anywhere near the kind of money we do, and they couldn't possibly buy as much shit from us as we buy from them. Even with, in some cases, 3 times our population, which India clearly has. That would be the thing. If a tariff is used to solve an unsolvable problem, or one that does not need to be solved, or if it was solved, it would be bad, then the tariff sucks. It's like a screwdriver. Nothing's wrong with a screwdriver until it's stuck in your leg. See what I mean? And that's suddenly a bad screwdriver, because now it's a leg driver. Something.
Why do all these countries insist upon keeping them?
Because they're just developing parts of their economies still, and they have a lot more people than we do, and they have to protect certain industries within their country, because if they're swamped by an external country, they'll find themselves in the same situation we found ourselves in with, say, PPE during the pandemic.
Why, when confronted by a Trump who says, listen, I want you to take all your tariffs down, and then we won't have any tariffs on you, these countries are very reluctant to do that. Now,
because we produce more than they can, even at their size. And this is India. Like, we produce more jasmine rice, for example, than India can in a lot of cases. And we could swamp their market with cheap rice just to raise the price, because our consumers internally in the country could absorb a higher cost based on lack of supply to the demand. We don't have a tremendous amount of demand for it, but we could grow a lot of it and basically wipe out their industry.
Some of them are notably bending on this, and suddenly they are very receptive to the possibility of a no-tariff trade system with the United States.
You mean like Vietnam, who we already had a trade agreement with?
A report that the EU may be considering this.
Any day now.
Japanese want to come here and negotiate over a trade deal. The Singaporeans have said, we're not putting any retaliatory tariffs. We want to work out basically an open trade arrangement.
Yeah, that's 4 out of what? Fucking everybody on Earth?
Ultimately, we'll see something quite similar with both
the penguins,
Canada and Mexico.
Why would we have to do with Canada and Mexico? USMCA stuff is exempt.
Countries are under pressure, willing to say, all right, we'll take this one down, we'll take that one down, or even we'll take them all down. But notice that you have to pressure them to do this, because
what, do you have to destroy your own economy just to get them to know you're serious? What, are you punching yourself in the fucking face and going, hey, laugh all you want, but you're next?
They thought it was in their interest not to have tariffs. If they agreed with all the economists, and I see Larry Summers, a number of prominent economists are all out there, tariffs are a kind of an economic boomerang. If you have tariffs, that's like, shooting yourself in the head. Well, why has China got tariffs then? Are they shooting themselves in the head?
Sort of. Yeah. Yeah, their economy sucks.
If they've been shooting themselves in the head, they refuse to go down because the Chinese economy has just gotten bigger, stronger, bigger, stronger.
Do we have to fucking start from scratch with these dumb motherfuckers every time? Hold on one second. Let's see. Economy. I don't even know if this will show up in this thing. For Google Finance, you silly thing. I need here, hold on. I've got to bring up another page, and we'll do this. Let's see. The Chinese economy, debt ratio, unemployment. How about that? Let's see how well they're doing. China's faces challenges with high debt to GDP ratio reaching a record high of over 286% in the fourth quarter, and an unemployment rate this year that has been edging higher, reaching 5.4%, which is obviously undercounted. China's total debt to GDP ratio has been steadily increasing, reaching a record high of 286%. On the fourth quarter of 2023, the macro leverage ratio, or total debt as percentage of gross, reached a new record high of 286.1 in the fourth quarter. The debt burden is substantial, with a significant portion comprised of corporate debt, including the state-owned enterprises, which is how they offset their debt a lot of times. Let's see. China's money budget deficit is set to drive further rise in... I'm trying to find the... Yeah, here we go. This is Fitch ratings. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just bigger, better, all the time. Yep, that looks bigger and better. Fitch consolidated general support... Government budget, this is percentage of GDP. China's government, there you go. Technically, they don't have Social Security like to speak of, so, but whatever. Consolidated fiscal balance. That's just bigger, stronger. Since 2016, man, this shit's just been fucking magic. Sorry, you were saying the mess? Sorry, where is he? Here he is.
And all with tariffs. I just saw a post from a guy I've known, at least certainly knew in my days in Washington, D.C., Fareed Zakaria. On CNN. And Fareed Zakaria was saying this. He's like, the United States did have...
The furrowed brow of condescension he's showing. This is to show you that Fareed Zakaria is obviously disconnected from reality and is pontificating.
Tariffs in the 19th century, but America was a marginal country. We were not really a world power.
Right.
Trump is trying to take us back to a time when America was very sidelined on the world stage. We've only become a global power in the 20th century. And so the idea here is that somehow we are regressing to a more infantile, undeveloped phase of our history. Now,
right, and that would be the argument that China, which is its economy is collapsing under its own weight, has been driven in large part by government subsidy and these tariffs for a long time, and it doesn't work. They never left that process.
What I want to say about this is connected to what I said a moment ago about these other countries having tariffs, and that is this. The United States had a lot of tariffs in the 19th century. But far from the 19th century being a time of like backwardness and things weren't going so well and America was marginal. I mean, think about it. America started out as an agricultural society that was indeed pretty marginal in the world scheme of things. Great Britain, of course, was a much more powerful country than the United States going back to the 18th century when we had...
Yeah, but they built us as a colony. We used the infrastructure partly of what they built as a springboard for the country that would be created over here.
But not just Great Britain. France was more powerful than America, and so were a whole bunch of other countries. So when did America become an economic powerhouse? Well, in the 19th century. It was really between about 1820 And about 1890,
because of the amount of agricultural land, because of the workforce, because of slavery in the South in some cases. That's why. Look, like a tremendous amount, and he's Indian, he should know this, but the tremendous amount of like the money that Britain had to do its imperialism in the world came from the fact that they controlled the tea trade in India, and that it got goods from Asia, that it controlled those things. It didn't have a tariff system with those countries because it had a hold of them. It had actually fought battles to control them. The tariff was a bullet and a bayonet.
America became this juggernaut of economic growth. The American economy became the biggest in the world. So the 19th century, particularly the second half, and this is notwithstanding the Civil War, was a period of huge prosperity for the United States. In fact,
because of the large land mass and the available goods and the uninterrupted growth of goods.
Only became a global power in the 20th century because it had already become a global economic power by the end of the 19th century. So the 19th century was, in fact, a time of great prosperity for America.
Oh my God, that's the out? He just cuts it right there. It was awesome. Bye. Yeah, I wouldn't take any questions either. I would leave this where I laid it down. Ultimately, okay, look. Historically speaking, a growing area, they do a lot of this chasing of percentages. We're up by 100%, 1,000%. And this is, we always go back to the Schaumburg thing. At one point, Schaumburg, Illinois was the fastest growing city in America because there were 4 people in it. And then 4 more people moved in, and it's 100% growth. When you're nothing and you're starting very small, all the growth is extraordinary compared to everybody else who's been around for a long time. So you put the percentages up against the growth of the United States versus the growth of France, for example, and even though economically speaking, it's financially way below it, the exponential growth caused by 0 to 10 makes the 0 to 10 look like the 100% that exists with France. So let's start there. Secondly, we had trade relationships with a bunch of these countries anyways, and there were tariffs in place on a lot of these things, but they weren't anywhere near as enforceable. Again, one of the reasons we had tariffs as our enforcement point was because you could stand there could be people at the ports making marks and stuff, but because nobody could be, like sending a tax collector out into the Old West and actually trying to fucking find people in the middle of Kansas was impossible. So when you shifted from that, the reason we shifted from that is because we took the money that we did have coming in, or that we took, and we used it to build a railroad, and we used it to build out the roadways before they ultimately became highways and paved roads, so that wagon trains and all these things could go through. And that infrastructure, gold and mining and all that kind of stuff, that trade and that brand new resource point was why we became rich. Not because we put a fucking thumb on the scale to protect our what's what during that time. We ran on tariffs because we couldn't, there was no organized system for gathering income tax in general. Tax collector was like one guy in town. And he was often the sheriff. I mean, go watch fucking Tombstone. If you haven't rewatched Tombstone because Val passed, I highly recommend it. But it's very insightful about how the kind of mechanics of those towns worked. All the the fight with the cowboys and all that kind of stuff, which is historically pretty accurate. The other stuff that goes on, like his Wyatt Earp's wife's laudanum addiction, or the tax collector county sheriff guy who helped, basically as the real estate agent for the area, was also very normal for these mining towns and these mining camps that they would set up, that they ultimately expanded. Go back and watch how that shit worked. There was no structure where they could actually do it. And even then, you were like, where the fuck did it go? A lot of times it just went in that dude's pocket. He had a really nice suit, but none of the money went to the fucking government to run anything. They had to, they were too busy basically using the East Coast's money to pay for a military to protect the outlying areas, so that at some point, 30 years down the road, they'd be able to take tax revenue from those folks. So the reason you could do tariffs is because it's easier to have a dude sitting on a dock checking these things. But it's also easier to pay him the fuck off because they're like, there weren't cameras back then. If you wanted him to look the other way, on a tariff, you pay him $1 versus paying the $3 tariff on stuff was way easier. So you had all these guys. There's a ton of people who have like a family history in certain areas all along the eastern seaboard and then eventually along the west too. Like once we reached the water out there where we had shipments coming in that way, that their family names, they got rich because they were the dude who like did the graft at the port. So again, this idea that we were rich on tariffs at the time, and because that was new. Once we set up a tariff situation, once it was coming in because we had so many goods shipping out, that was the majority of the money that came in for the federal government. But income tax are a much more steady one because, and this is the key point, if you run on tariffs, all somebody has to do is either blockade or get involved in a tariff dispute using that third party country like China or somebody else like that interfering with your trade, and you're cut off. All your money dries up because you're just making it off of imports. But if they blockade the imports, you're fucked. That's what, especially around World War I, they realized, like, if we get surrounded, or if they send gunboats over here, or if they start sinking boats that are heading from Europe over to here, and we rely on the tariffs to pay for everything, and those ships never fucking make it, we don't make that tariff. We don't make that money. And therefore, we have nothing to build our military with. You do it internally for your own national security. And this idea that we're going to do it to everybody at once is just absurd because it makes it too easy for big blocks of them to get together and go, fuck you, and sell to each other. You create free trade agreements amongst European countries and South America and Africa and Asia and the Middle East because they're like, okay, well, if they're going to charge us too much to get it, we'll go to this other consumer base. We might make a little less and we might have to spread it out a little finer, but at least we won't have to deal with these assholes and we won't be victims of their economic terrorism. That said, tonight's the night, man. Midnight tonight. All this shit allegedly goes into effect, and it's going to happen. He's not going to call it off at 11:59. And I know there are a bunch of people, like today the market was like all over the place, and yesterday because there were all these leaked stories about it. Maybe it won't be so bad. But once these fucking things go into effect, there's a reason why they waited till Wednesday for him to announce this last week. And there's a reason why these things didn't go into effect until midnight on Tuesday, Wednesday morning. So that, again, you wouldn't have the worst fucking week ever because half the week is gone. You still might, though, just for the record. So everybody hang on tight. It's going to be exciting. And again, a reminder, I will be in Nashville, Tennessee this weekend, but I should be able to do all my regular shows. I even got a hotel Thursday, even though I'm flying in on a red eye and I don't get in until Friday morning. I got a hotel on Thursday so that I can, as soon as I land at 5 a.m., I can go straight to my hotel, take a short nap, and be able to do my show in the afternoon. So you're welcome. So, it's a couple $100, but it's worth it for you guys. So that I can, keep at least be consistent with this. Plus, Rob Glenn wasn't able to be on the show last week, and so I want him to be able. I want to do the show with him this week. I'm very excited about it because I'm basically pegging the nerd meter right now, and I need an outlet. It's so very confusing. All right, I will see you guys later on. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. I'll see you in the morning. By the way, let me see if we do have this here. Where are we? Our guest tomorrow, I know Philip Ittner will be joining us. Yes. And Major Ojeda will be with us as well. I don't doubt that they will be quite outspoken, as it were. Oh, Tesla took another shit today. Trump on the midterms. I really think we're helped a lot by the tariff situation. It's great. Nope. Here's the thing. A, we fucking told you so. And B, it's hard not to just hope that this asshole, like, or the people around him, know this is coming, know it's him, know it's completely self-inflicted as a wound, and the blame, like, government shutdowns, they were trying to blame on Democrats, and there's this vacillation. There is no one to blame but Trump for this tariff horseshit. No one. He is the only person singularly claiming it. And we'll see how long the fanboys can hold on. Because I don't think it's... I don't think they're going to be able to hold on very long. I really don't. I think where they're headed, they're aware. They're aware this is bad. The question is, how much damage is he going to do, and on whose behalf? Just so he can refinance his fucking golf courses. It's Hal Sparks, Mega Worldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. I'll see you tomorrow. Woo! That's an interesting... I've never seen the little red dancing guy before. That's fun. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you for the likes. And thank you for the super chats and subscribing. Please subscribe, will you? It ain't much.